still connected. Pulling.
Committing, Splyce taking a page from the Fnatic playbook, and Patrick now in trouble. Goodbye to the Draven. Vizicachi with a big off the shutdown onto the Draven. Splyce will take down Origin and raise the question, who really is the third best team in Europe? Splyce!
For the past 2 years, we've made playoffs every single time, but somehow at the beginning of each split, we are not even in playoffs in some tier list, and it's just mind-blowing to me.
They were always the team that made every single playoffs, but they were always the team that weren't able yet to compete with the top of the table.
I think the matchup versus Splyce will be even, I would say. I don't think there's like any huge player difference. Obviously, we were like much more motivated since they beat us many times last split, so we want the revenge for sure.
Onto the devoured croucher. Here comes Judge as well. The slicing mouse straight onto the backline already. He's taken down one. It's the shutdown. Void Rush used by Humanoid. It's going to push well and back into the team. And Splyce have found the fight they needed.
SK are a stronger team than they were in spring. I think if Crownshot can match and surpass Kobe, it can be the key to victory for SK Gaming.
I feel like our ceiling is high since most of us are rookies, in LEC.
Upset on Vayne, you have to feel more confident in, versus Crownshot on Ezreal. He's thrown it! He's hit up a Dage! Upset's down! He's caught out! Crownshot remains untouched. I have to eat humble pie after watching the last 20 minutes of that game.
I believe in great things for this team.
As far as Kobe is concerned, SK should be a guaranteed victory. But if they can't get through crown shots, this could be a victory that could determine World Championship seeding.
Worlds is a really big stake for me. I went there in my first year where I felt like I wasn't that good of a player. I haven't been able to go back there since, so it's 2 years. If you struggle with SK, then what are you going to do against teams like Fnatic and G2? It's like a team we have to beat.
I'm not really afraid of Xerxes. I don't think he's the main win condition for Splyce.
I figured him out and he showed in our series against him. I knew where he was every single time.
Organic destruction from Kobe as they take down one, and they're just going to clean them all up. Splyce rout SK.
SK are hungrier, and I'm seeing more growth from this team and their players, which is why I think SK is going to take down Splyce.
Welcome back to the LEC studio for our match of the week. It is Splyce taking on SK Gaming. And despite my very bold call during the match of the week video, it is Splyce that is currently the third best team in Europe. They took down Origin when they played back in week 3, and Splyce are the favorites today.
And maybe they can take down SK Gaming for the 6th time. Of course, it is a 5-1 record total for this team, so there's no doubt that Splyce are looking like the favorites. And partially, after a game like this, it does feel pretty hard to doubt them. This game was so decided in the early game. Xerxes was everywhere he needed to be. Splyce matched OG across the map and honestly just outplayed in a lot of the mid-game scenarios. And for me, as someone who has doubted Splyce in the past as being a contender for that top 3, it is refreshing to see them play so confidently up against a top-tier opponent like OG.
Do you feel the performance that Splyce is showing right now is going to be good enough to get them to break into the top 3, knowing you have to be in the top 3 if you're going to make it to Athens, if you're going to make it to the Roadshow, and potentially make it to Worlds?
I mean, to be fair, Origin have had one of the toughest schedules. That is their big opponent. We'll see how they do against some of the teams that are lower down in the standings. But for now, when it comes to teams that are lower down, I don't expect Splyce to drop games really anywhere up against SK. Definitely don't think it's going to be the case.
So let's talk a little bit about SK Gaming, because of course, as you mentioned, Splyce are 5-1 versus SK. We talked a little bit about some of the key players to look at, and Selfmade is a guy you cannot get away from when you look at this SK Gaming roster. He is the tip of the spear, the Zinzao that goes in first, and it's either make or break more often than not.
I feel like he absolutely has to be. When you look at this team, of course, as a whole, they're often defined by what Selfmade can do in the early game. Now, they've shown us more this year. They have grown. Selfmade doesn't need to have insane early game pop-off performances for them to win, but up against a team that is at the top of the table, that is exactly what you want to see from SK. When it comes to individual contributors to their teams, I think Xerxes, he can have those moments. Selfmade can have them too. So to me, it's which team wants to set up their jungler to take over the early game. Who is going to grab something like the Elise, something like the Lee Sin, to make sure that action happens in the early portions of the game.
And of course, Xerxes, historically, when he's come up against Selfmade, the man on your screen, Xerxes is the guy that's had the better of the matchup. He's read where Selfmade has been. Splyce know how to respond to SK. They've downloaded SK's playstyle and they know how to counter it. The difference this time, Sacre's up in that top lane. Crownshot is playing out of his mind. I'm starting to believe Crownshot's becoming a good bot laner. And that was a bold statement in spring.
I think Crownshot is incredibly good. Perks has had a lot of praise for him. He says that, yes, sometimes he tries too hard to make these big, aggressive plays, but for the most part, that's the better side of the coin to be on. It's better to be a little more aggressive than far too passive, paired with Dreams. I think they're a real threat, but you are going up against Kabi and Northscairn, and while they might struggle a bit in the lane, I mean, when you talk about late-game powerhouses, Kabi is right up there with Reckless in terms of team fighting prowess.
Yeah, absolutely the case. I mean, look, on paper, Splyce are the better team. They've got the 5-1 record this year alone against SK. But I think SK, with Crownshot as well as Selfmade, they can do it. Let's find out if they can. The teams are ready for our match of the week. Medic, take it away.
Thank you very much, Quickshot. I'm still Medic, that's still Endo, and in the middle, it's Foscurin in the most beautiful flowery top I have seen today.
I'm a very flamboyant cowboy.
A very flamboyant flamingo?
Yeah, it's like a cactus. Dude, we got a Western vibe. It's fine.
Okay, I mean, you're the only one who has a Western vibe here, but we'll go with it. We are the three cowboys, or the three stooges, as you might say, and we're here for SK versus Splyce, a game that probably should decide some playoff seeding at the end of the split.
It's always scary to be like, you know, playoffs, worlds, playoffs, like drive those stakes there, especially for how early we are into the split. But I do feel like we need to set the table that Splyce versus SK, yes, it's the best of one. Yes, this won't definitively say who is going to be better, but this is probably the best case that we're going to look at a possible playoff matchup these guys faced last time around. And I think that there is a lot of conclusions to draw as they match up here today.
Exactly, because SK was a 6th place team in spring. Splyce was a 4th place team. So these are the ones that were on the cusp for SK to make it into playoffs, for Splyce rather, to make it into that famed top 3.
And I do want to point our attention now towards draft. Now we are on 9.13, and the thing that I really want to point out is the Neeko ban. Now Neeko has been banned because she has very good matchups in that top lane. She's one of the range champions that can abuse a lot of those matchups. But for SK Gaming specifically, they don't play Ryze, they like to flex that Neeko, and they have been a team that have differentiated themselves in the LEC because they will prioritize their top laner into priority picks more so than anywhere else, and they'll also pick up jungle picks quite early on in their draft rotation.
Exactly, it's very pointed bans here already with the Neeko, as you mentioned. The first ban of Elise from SK2, of course, that is Xerxes' most played champion so far this split, and he has looked absolutely terrifying on that champ in a matchup between two junglers that we think is going to be very, very important.
Ooh, already we see a bit of a change up to the books here. First pick, Azir. Not very commonly that we see him locked in so soon.
Yeah, no, we did see Azir banned first rotation in the last game, and there have been 3 weeks of scrims going on before, since we have last seen these teams. And Humanoid, we know, loves to have this Azir. He played it very well back in week 3, so it's a little early, I think, but still a good choice for him.
The thing that I like about an Azir priority is that it does give you so much power in that mid lane in terms of priority over the wave. It's a great answer that when you have the Corki there, so they're saying, no, you're not going to get mid-wave priority just for free here. We have a champion like Corki that can match Azir there, but just from a strategy standpoint on the very first pick that I see from Splyce, it feels like they're playing around the 2v2. That it's not so much about trying to kill Selfmade Empyrean, but it is about contesting them on the wave. If that Azir can start trading aggressively against the Corki with something like an Electrocute, if they have something like an Olaf, it means that Selfmade doesn't get to dictate around the river because Humanoid will be so far forward.
Exactly, it gives them a lot of options. They also have this Karma, either top lane or bottom lane, to help with this push in the early game to enable your jungler to play forward. Xerxes, when he has looked his best, he has been ganking, he has been invading the enemy jungle, and it comes from strong laners to back him up.
But we heard Selfmade say he's not scared of Xerxes. He doesn't think he's the big playmaker on the side of Splyce, and he puts a little bit of a gauntlet in the face of Xerxes here as well by picking his Lee Sin.
It doesn't matter if you think that Xerxes is the playmaker or not. He definitely has a wide champion pool, and he is one of the louder voices in this squad. Duke speaks very highly of Xerxes, and I feel like Splyce are really uncapped as soon as Xerxes feels comfortable really being one of the primary leaders on this squad.
And now we get into the second ban phase. We kind of glossed over the Corki and the Tahm Kench pick. No real surprises there. Pyrian, a known Corki player. Tahm Kench, very good, and Dreams has played it a lot this split as well.
Yeah, and again, this gives SK strong options, you know, splitting up the map later in the game, because of course Corki is going to do much better in a side lane than in Azir, especially once you get a couple items on towards that champion. The Tahm Kench as well gives them very good options, like we saw from Schalke in the last.
I really want to hone in on this Jinx ban. So Crownshot's kind of 2 signature champions are Ezreal and Jinx. Ezreal, we saw it work very well when Schalke just had the Tahm Kench easy down there. There's almost nothing you can do to break that lane. It has so much safety in it. So I'm curious if they double down and ban away his Ezreal, or if they start to look elsewhere for some of these matchups.
Well, if they ban the Ezreal, then it's just really the Sivir left in that champion was knocked down just a little bit.
Good prediction on the Ezreal ban. Lots of AD carries
Give
getting
me
removed from the
Ash.
pool here as well.
Yes!
Ash gets locked in. Ash Tom Kench, something we've seen. We saw it at MSI coming out from SKT. Here we'll see it coming out from SK. And we'll see if they can be as successful as their Korean brethren.
Yeah, you know, and I like the Ash here because we look at SK Gaming's composition. What are they lacking? Any form of real engage. The Lee Sin kick, it would be a miracle to find an insect play, and we're very likely going to be seeing Sakura on something without hard engage because he likes to play these ranged top laners that look to split push rather than team fight. Having an Ash fixes some of the issues with SK's comp.
I also think that Ash is slowly starting to climb up a bit more in terms of ADC priority. We saw Schalke flash Ash last game. I expect to see her pop up a little bit more in the LEC. One of the picks that really is a thorn in Ash's side, however, is something like an Olaf as well as a Mordekaiser. So SK got rid of the Mordekaiser because Mord can just ult her, walk up to her killer, but who is going to keep Xerxes off of Crown Shot?
So I think this might be the first Tristana we've seen, definitely in the LEC, maybe globally in summer. I'm going to ask our stats team to check that. I'm sure of it being in the LEC, but seeing Kobe picking up the Tristana, something he has played in the past, is definitely a throwback.
Yeah, I actually really like the Tristana here, not just because you can buffer things
That's their first
like
rise!
Bash ult. All right, SK playing the rise, but also I think Tristana, when we look towards the later stage of the game, when you see picks like this, you expect it to go long. Tristana's passive to give her that bonus range will let her outrange stuff like the Ash and like the Corki and have a much bigger impact in the 5v5.
This is actually a completely different look than a lot of SK Gaming's draft by taking the Rise, because this is a champion that they just never touch, that other LEC teams were picking up when they had the opportunity. It gives them a very strong 1-3-1. How Ash and Tahm Kench fit into this is not just with the Abyssal Voyage to play swing out into side lanes, but priority over the mid lane. As soon as the towers go down, if you park Ash and Kench there, there's nothing you can do. They just auto-force the way forward, and it buys so much time for the mobility of Rise and Corki to do whatever they want in sides.
Yeah, and the usual answer for that with Splyce would be we hard commit to the mid lane, we find a fight. But when you have champions like Olaf in the jungle, like Braum support, you don't have that heavy engage to try and pick people off. Especially when there's a Tahm Kench on the other side, you're just not going to be able to find that move.
It's the first Tristana we see in the major regions this split. It's in the hands of our all-pro AD carry from last split. Kobe's going to be piloting it, and I'm sure we are in for a barnstormer of a game. Very traditional from Splyce, looking for a bit of scaling, looking for some late-game teamfights. It's what we saw from them a lot in 2018. Will it be effective in 2019?
I want to echo what Ender is saying. I think it's actually very difficult for Splyce to execute on this composition. Obviously, if someone runs into them, if the teamfight's not moving around a lot, they should win, but they don't have the hard engage that when they get ahead to force fights.
On to Summoner's Rift we go once again. Two playoff teams from last split battling for the head-to-head record, and Splyce are doing something sneaky up towards top.
I know a cute little level 1 is coming in. Now that said, SK Gaming should expect it, which is why they got out early, they placed the wards, they understand that there's a Braum on the enemy team. So
and an Olaf.
probably stay away from that one. I want to focus in very quickly on some of the keystone changes, so specifically on Humanoid's Azir. Humanoid is running the Electrocute. Now we've seen this in Korea, and it works very well into Corki in specific. Corki is one of those champions that Azir can struggle to trade with quite effectively. He can also contest him in some of these wave clear, especially, you know, towards that level 4 to level 6 mark. But by taking the Electrocute, it can help Azir try to make these short burst exchanges.
Exactly, because as you said, that's exactly the kind of trade that Corki wants to go for. Now, Humanoid should have control over the wave early levels because he doesn't really care about cooldowns. You know, you put down a soldier, you get multiple attacks for that AoE to clear away the waves, while Corki has to wait a little bit longer before he has the CDR to spam Q and E readily.
And reminder, the purpose of having the Olaf and the Azir is so you can contest for the wave those early levels. Exactly what Ender was talking about. We also have an early sweeper picked up by Xerxes, and they say right out the gate, this is what it's about. This is a 2v2 mid lane, not to kill you, but to completely control and pressure your jungle. This is how Splyce beat SK Gaming. They track Selfmade, and they don't let him have an impact on the game.
It makes a lot of sense. And I want to just talk about what's going through Selfmade's mind here, because you play-tested a lot. You're quite a high-level jungler in EU and in NA. When you see Xerxes going for an invade like this, what are you thinking?
Well, you're thinking that Olaf clears the jungle really fast, so you have to make a move. You know Olaf's on your top side, so the immediate answer is you must respond and clear away this red buff. Unfortunately, there's a ward that he is being spotted out on, so right now Xerxes is collapsing down towards that bottom side. Norscairn and Kabi are also looking for the pick.
Because it's always going to be a team effort from Splyce. They understand where Selfmade wants to go. They'll constantly be warding his jungle, counter-warding their own jungle, and then just keeping tabs on where this Lee Sin moves.
Yeah, and ultimately, because Selfmade comes in and takes the red buff, the trade is not between buffs. It's because the extra Raptor camp went Xerxes' way. Now, Xerxes was expecting to get a kill or maybe to force a flash out of Selfmade. I actually think the better move would have been to go up topside and take the Krugs, because it's very unlikely Selfmade can respond with, you know, counter jungling. He clears much slower on these multi-target camps like the Krugs and the Raptors, and very likely would have just left after the red.
Chachi already trading aggressively here into Sakurai in the top lane. Bringing out the Rise here for the first time from SK. Chachi with the Karma does always have the push advantage early on.
Yeah, it's going to be a struggle for Rise, especially in these early levels. As soon as he gets a larger mana pool, so some of his regen itemization, that's when things start to swing back in his favor. In terms of Sakurai and his champion pool, he basically exclusively plays ranged champions up in the top lane. The one exception to this is, I think, a single Renekton game, but this guy is our ranged top laner. He loves the Cannons, he loves the Nars, he loves the Nikos, as well as Vladimir, and so Rise fits right into that wheelhouse.
Exactly, because I think a lot of the time we say he's a lane bully top laner, and that's not exclusive, because the Vladimir was a big pick for him back in EU Masters. As you said, Rise does fit into that wheelhouse, and we'll have to wait until he gets more levels before he can contest the wave, because you look at AoE options between these two champions. Karma, it's very easy to Q, Mantra Q the wave, and Rise just can't contest that.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the jungle and how that's matching up early on. We've talked about the top lane. Let's look at these other two lanes. Ashe is always strong at pushing up lanes, especially into someone like Tristana, who doesn't have as much inherent wave clear. That was not
missed
good.
the volley on two minions.
Okay,
It was a warning volley.
That is pathetic.
Can't clear the wave if you miss it, but I've played Ashe in TFT, and sometimes that happens, you know? Sometimes she just ults the wrong target.
She has no glacial synergy in this game. What is she going to do?
That's the problem.
It feels like it is much more about a control lane, that Crown Shot and Dreams, until they have access to level 6, are more so about playing weak side, while Selfmade is probably going to look for anything that he can possibly get until level 6, then maybe he looks for some skirmishes, but this early game is going exactly how we expected it to, and that Splyce is controlling everything, and unfortunately SK Gaming will have to play from a back foot until they get access to level 6.
Yeah, and ultimately I think SK can wait towards, you know, much later mid-game when they can actually split up the map. They don't need kills coming out of the lane. We know that Rise is going to be outscaling in the 1v1 up against this Karma. Same thing can be said for Forky in the side lane, so they don't need kills. They can just play around the lanes that they are strong, make sure they don't fall behind, and then when they split up the map and put those soul laners in side lanes, that's where they're going to be strongest.
But you can see Selfmade already looking down towards the bottom lane, stealing away those Krugs. He is the player that SK look to so often to make plays for them, to set them up for these early game leads. This summer, though, hasn't always had the impact that SK relied on him in spring. Now, Pyrion, very low in the mid lane as Humanoid jumps in. Won't quite get the damage. Pyrion, that's a respect flash. Humanoid could have flash Q'd, could have taken him out. Meanwhile, Sakurai in the top lane is trading onto Chachi, but I do want to come back to Selfmade and how he affects SK's early game.
Yeah, Selfmade's an interesting case here, because in spring he was all about finding early game kills. You know, he'd go top lane multiple times early on, make sure he was getting kills, and his stats looked really good. But what I've seen from him so far in Summer Split is a very different mindset for this player. No longer is it about finding every kill that presents itself, but he's much more thinking about where the enemy jungler is on the map, about tracking the enemy jungler, and about protecting his own lanes that could be vulnerable.
It still feels that SK Gaming are a bit too reliant on when they're grouped up or in their heavy skirmishes, rather than the power that they can take advantage of in lane phases. It feels like the first time that we saw SK Gaming, it was all about heavy gank rotation, dueling in the jungler, Selfmade getting all of these kills on a carry-oriented jungler, where now in Summer what we've seen so far is more of emphasis on, okay, let's play out the lane phase pretty slow, let's wait till 1-2 item power spike, and then we start to make our plays.
Pyrion going for a very aggressive trade there in the mid lane. There's a huge wave here for Humanoid as well, so Pyrion's going to be about 20 CS down when this one finishes up because of the bad back timer, because of the way the wave was set. It's forced away. Now Selfmade has started up the Ocean Drake to try and mitigate some of that loss.
Yeah, and just very well played around that mid lane priority. We'll see if they get out with this Ocean Drake.
The Splyce are on their way. We've seen a Dragon fall already. Xerxes gonna jump in and smite it away. Now Humanoid flashing onto the backline, jumping in with the Streamer slide. Dreams is low, looking for the flash across the wall, can get to the blast cone as well, but Kabi chases him down. First blood goes to Splyce.
Huge play there from Splyce. Xerxes getting into the pit to secure the dragon, and then the first blood going onto the Tristana, the late game hyper carry that they need.
And while it doesn't mean as much if SK Gaming get kills into the lane phase, it definitely does if Splyce do on this composition. Again, we expect the outscale potential or the 1-3-1 to be in the favor of SK Gaming, but if Splyce start picking up more and more kills into this early game, this composition doesn't need the hard engage because it can just walk up and take whatever it wants. It won't be so reliant on what it's lacking as a 5v5.
Exactly. We see this one more time. It's a Q into Flash Smite right there to knock down the Dragon. No Smite even came through from the Lee Sin, and Dreams just barely almost made it out towards safety, but you know, you're not getting anywhere when you can just be jumped on by a Tristana.
Oh, that one hurts. You can already see Kabe's itemization. He's got the BF sword, the pickaxe, so double flat AD items. He's gonna hit like a truck, and suddenly Crown Shot and Dreams need to play much more respectfully in this lane.
Yeah, and you know, we talked a bit about the 1-3-1 outscale for SK, but I think if we look at late game 5v5, Splyce have a lot of good things going for them.
They dominate if it stays still.
Exactly, because, and we think about it this way, right? You have Humanoid's Azir, you have Kabe's Tristana. The range advantage for Tristana is absolutely massive. You're not gonna have a Ryze able to touch the backline. You're not gonna have, you know, anyone else on this team able to access it. Even if they can, there's going to be a Braum Unbreakable up there to actually peel your ADC. So Kabe's going to have a very good time if they can push into the late game and also get the 5v5s, because the 1-3-1 will not be favored for them.
Both these teams were in playoffs last split, of course, and if you want to watch the epic conclusion of those playoffs on the 7th and 8th of September, you can find us in Athens, Greece. Tickets are available at riot.com/Athens on the interwebs.
Good plug right there. Speaking of this dragon, however, I know that wasn't what you were talking about, but we're going to hard advance anyway.
No, you should.
Ocean Drake. It actually matters quite significantly because we're still in the lane phase, but also because of how these matchups work, particularly in the Azir Corki matchup. Again, we talked about the itemization of taking the Electrocute into the Corki. Now that you also have an Ocean Drake into your back pocket, it makes competing for wave priority over mid lane that much easier for Humanoid because he can be a bit more selfish in taking some of these exchanges.
And we always talk about the ability of a Corki to roam around the map when he gets that first package. We just saw it used to get away from a gank from Xerxes, so less ability for SK to make these plays in side lanes, to try and collapse, to try and make picks with the Ash Arrow, actually makes it very hard for them to get any advantages in this game.
Yeah, it's difficult for them at the moment, but as we've said before, you know, it's all right for SK as long as they can stop the bleeding and not fall too far behind. I think the biggest concern for them, actually top lane.
Oh, Chachi caught. Oh, Chachi goes down. The Realm Warp gets SK out as well. Xerxes not there in time, and SK find a pick in top.
And you can see why he thought he was safe right there. Chachi knowing that Xerxes and Humanoid were just on the top side of the map since it was exchanging blue buffs, so he's like, I could probably walk into this river, it'd be aight. It wasn't.
He was not aight.
Oh, Kobe's going to jump in here, but Dreams spits Crown Shot out straight away. Glacial Fisher comes out as well as they look for the chase. Thick skin from Dreams will keep him alive for the moment, but he's solo. Kobe jumping in! Buster Shot takes him out. Kobe tanks up the tower. Crown Shot could look to go forward, but can't face into two.
The confidence from Kabe to jump forward right there, when there's a level 6 Ashe in his face. He did not care. The timing was perfect on that play. He loses the flash, but he gets the kill.
Kobe so confident on that Tristana. Last time we saw it played was by Doublelift at MSI. And Kobe showing that although it's been a while, he hasn't lost any of his skills on the explosive Rocketeer down towards the bottom lane. Now Splyce go for the Rift Herald up towards top. They have total control of the map at the moment.
Yeah, they're picking up 2v2 kills into the lane phase. They also have the tempo advantage in terms of how they're playing the map. That Rift Herald is going to mean a lot significantly, because if you can use it to snowball your Tristana and your Azir to their incredibly powerful late game, then again, the fact that Splyce can't force fights doesn't matter, because they'll just walk up to objectives, feel strong enough that it doesn't matter, and take them for free.
Yeah, we see this play one more time. Bot side, the timer going out at the last second. Kabe actually fakes him out too. It's an ultimate to guarantee the bonus damage and make sure he can get that out before he's CC'd by the Ashe. Very nicely done.
And it's one of the reasons you sometimes see Tahm Kench take the Unsealed Spellbook down towards the bottom lane so that you can have a cleanse in the lane. Here, Dreams is taking Guardian for a little bit more defensive stats, but not working out for them. Kobe now finished his Infinity Edge, only 11 minutes into the matchup, and as you said, in the pick and ban phase, Ender, that Tristana only gets more deadly as the game goes on with the increasing range.
Yeah, she definitely does when no one can compete against her. Selfmade once again up towards this top side of the map. He knows there's still a flash on towards Visit Chachi, but he is trying to make a play while the Herald is summoned on the bottom half of the map, but he's not going to be able to get that much.
Yeah, I really like the fact that they are trying to funnel so much gold into Kabe's hands still as well, and also trying to unlock him. Now, look at the top side of the map, Chachi knows that Selfmade's probably peeking around the corner here, and he says, it's not even worth it. We're going to get the tower advantage. I'm just going to back off. So great job from Chachi to play weak side.
Yeah, the big difference here is the speed at which Splyce can take this tower down bottom lane, because top lane tower will not be fully traded.
It's also the tempo play over the dragon that's going to be spawning next. So now it's a huge control over this Infernal here, so Splyce probably feeling very confident.
I do want to come back to some of the drafting decisions that were made in this game. We saw the Corki picked into the Azir, about 20 CS down at the moment, struggling a little bit in that lane. Sakurai picked the Ryze in the top lane. He's done okay into that Karma matchup, but you have to think that SK, they went for this 1-3-1 comp, but didn't really band-aid their early game weaknesses. Oh! Tyrion flashes away from Humanoid. Abyssal Voyage coming in here from Dreams. The one line as Humanoid flashes away from it. And he's trying to escape, but on the way down is Lee Sin. Selfmade coming down. Sakurai there as well. Hasn't quite got the Realm Warp up yet. The Tongue Lash doesn't connect, and Selfmade unable to get here in time. Humanoid gets out.
That was so sick there from Humanoid. Not just the dive into the tower, but also the little fancy feet towards the end right there. Absolutely outplaying Pyrion in the 1v1.
And they're just picking up a lot of plates across the board. It feels like Splyce are really forcing the tempo of this game. We've now swapped Tristana up into that top lane. We've already seen Kabe punching down on Crown Shot this entire time. So unless SK Gaming can somehow figure out how to pump the brakes on this game, Splyce are going to continue to accelerate.
Yeah, exactly, because if Splyce can come into this mid-game with a big gold lead and just dictate their way around the map, it can be absolutely brutal. Now, he misses the initial ultimate right there, but still has the electrocute damage to finish off the kill. And without the electrocute, I don't think he actually makes that play happen. He then flashes away and gets out with ease.
That he does. Splyce having a commanding early game here. 2 dragons, 2,000 gold lead, 3 kills to 1. And they're looking for their second tower of the game up towards this top side as well. Blade of the Ruin King has been finished on Crown Shot. He's hit that first spike on the Ashe, but it's going to be a long time before he can match into Kobe.
I think the more important thing is actually the fact that the 2 stopwatches are now available for Crown Shot and Dreams. So if Splyce actually do try to punish them up into the top side, they need to make sure that it's picture perfect. But
what's Pyrion doing here? That was very aggressive play. Yes, he had the package, but all Human needed to do was get a good shuffle off, and Pyrion would have been dead. I guess it shows you can limit tests even in the LEC games as Pyrion manages to get away.
I mean, he knew that Humanoid didn't have his ultimate. He knew that he didn't have the flash, so probably just, you know, testing his luck, testing his limits, if you will.
Hey, it worked.
Yeah, it did. It definitely worked. For the moment, Splyce are grouping up towards top, as you said earlier, and Xerxes playing very well around Kobe, trying to funnel as much gold into that Tristana as possible. And the question becomes, what can SK do about it? How do you stem that bleeding?
Well, right now, SK need to get out of this 2v2 topside, I think. As soon as Ashe and Tahm Kench get into the mid lane, Splyce just go to a standstill. No longer can they make a tempo play on a side lane. No longer can they try to force down towards this mid lane tower. That has to be the next look for SK.
And you can tell that Splyce recognizes as well. The reason why SK Gaming weren't immediately pulling the trigger on that is because they didn't have access to Crown Shot's ultimate. Now that the ultimate is back up, you suddenly see Kabe and Norscaron being far more respectful. They push the wave up, they then immediately disappear into Fog of War, and they're basically waiting for reinforcements or information. And here comes the reinforcements, and there goes SK's information.
Yeah, clear out as much vision as possible. Xerxes and Humanoid are on their way up. Pyrion still mid, doesn't have the TP. Sakurai has one, but Crown Shot and Dreams just have to back away. This tower's going to fall. Sakurai trying to pressure bot. Selfmade's on the bottom side of the map as well.
And you can see the difference in just speed of willingness to make these plays. Splyce immediately make this happen up topside. SK have 3 members that could easily collapse down towards bottom lane, but it is delayed. That delay in tempo means that Vizicachi can back away from that bottom lane, and it gives Splyce much more room to control and push their vision inside the enemy jungle.
And this is going to sound a bit weird and a bit kind of like an abstract point.
I'm ready.
But it's kind of why I hope to see more Tristana from Splyce, because I think that champion means more from them. Splyce are a team that when they're given the lead, because of how intelligent they are about the playbook League of Legends or the formula League of Legends they play, Trist is so good at moving around from tower to tower to tower, placing her push on it and forcing them down, that I think that when Splyce get leads, when they have Tristana, it just amplifies everything that's already good about this team, as well as being on a guy like Kabe, who's obviously comfortable on the champion and who is excelling at team fighting with range.
I think that's a really good point for us, because we always worry, and Vedius always talks about how Splyce have a good early game, but then their mid game kind of falls apart. Tristana band-aids that, right? Your mid game is so easy because you know what you want to do is walk to a tower, put the E on it, and then auto-attack it a few times. So really insightful stuff there. SK try and find a pick around this mid lane. They do have the arrow. Crownshot is in mid. Those straight line arrows very easy to hit, but Kobe still has flash, still has jump to get away.
Yeah, so what SK need to do is now they have the players in the right lanes. Ash, Tom, Kench in mid lane, and I really want to see them control one side of the river. Right now it seems to be that bottom side, which works because Sakura is pushing down bot. So if you can always have push in mid lane and have the vision denial with control wards going down towards that bottom lane, it makes it very easy to move with this Tom Kench and always be threatening a dive.
But the key is that they still really need to hit that arrow. So there's so much pressure on Crownshot that when he does pull the trigger, that it has to connect to a good target, and that SK Gaming need to be in a position that they can act on it. Because right now, it still feels that SK are playing from a very far back foot, about to get worse possibly.
Yeah, and it feels bad, especially too, because Splyce came off of their reset and sent 4 members toward that mid lane. So even though SK were there first, they were outnumbered 4-3. This is what we'll see Splyce do a lot, is off of resets, group up to get pressure.
Oh, that's so disappointing that Selfmade couldn't get the kick there. So what SK are fishing for is they know that they need to break something here. They need to force a pick or some sort of fight, and because Splyce are just overwhelming them on the map. They tried to go into their 1-3-1, they tried to divide the map, but Splyce just hard ran it into the mid lane, and because mid lane is so low, Splyce are eventually just going to get it. This is like a wave that's slowly going to overtake and drown SK Gaming if they don't find something quickly.
Yeah, and it probably happens right now too, because notice Pyrian is stuck top lane, Humanoid comes mid, Kabe can walk up, hit this tower a couple of times, and it goes down. And now the map is broken. Now Splyce move into the enemy jungle, put down vision to set up her objectives.
Yeah, that's the next 4 or 5 minutes of this game. It's all going to be about vision control. Keep your eyes on this top and bottom side jungle for SK, because it should be littered by Splyce wards.
The nice thing for SK Gaming fans is that they have completed the Trinity Force. You can now see that players are making their back. We're going to see how close they are to second items, but kind of that 2-item power spike for SK Gaming's composition can be when they get some of their teeth back here. So again, you can see that SK are trying to go into their 1-3-1. They're trying to pick up the free farm available, but we're still a couple of significant items away before they can start overtaking and controlling this map.
I think one of the big things for Splyce, as we've said a few times, is if you don't find that initial engage, the chase is actually really hard. SK, sorry, the chase is actually really hard onto all the players on the side of Splyce. Karma's very good at getting away. Azir can just jump over a wall. Same with Tristana. If the arrow isn't connecting, you're not following up. How on earth do you catch anyone from this Splyce lineup?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Splyce really can or want to at the moment, because if you're going to catch someone, you have to have control over an area of the map, which they're just simply not going to be getting unless you can land some miracle play.
Selfmade, you gotta be kidding me. Does it as you say it, Ender. Selfmade says, I can do whatever the hell I want.
And Selfmade has been fishing for that for the last 5 minutes. You saw him on the Raptor camp. He initially tried it when Splyce pushed up into the mid lane, but then right there, baited by the control ward, the caster curse makes Ender eat his words. Now,
I'm so tilted.
That's the hype moment out of the way, because unfortunately, SK Gaming really didn't get anything from that. Yeah, they killed him, but it didn't translate into like a Baron or a tower or some sort of tempo advantage. In fact, all it really did was trade Selfmade's flash for the fact that Kabe still has his flash. So I don't think you get that one again, and unfortunately that might have been their big play.
Well, we'll see. Maybe SK can take this top lane tower out of it. Saka trying to get away here. Long range route will not connect as he gets out with the Realm Warp. We did also see Selfmade jumping away from Humanoid. Tower falls in the top lane, SK get their second, and the gold is now about 2,000 between these two teams. Splyce still in the driver's seat, you have to feel, but this is what Selfmade can do on his day.
Look at this one more time. It's a ward hop forward into the flash kick there. There's just no room for a play to be made.
My favorite part is Pyrian, just like with his W, Valkyrieing across, like it was completely unneeded. It looked really cool.
I'm helping. Just jumping across. It did give a shutdown across towards Crownshot as well, so he got 250 extra gold. He's combined a spatula and a recurve bow to get himself a Runan's Hurricane, and that's not actually the combination. it's Negatron Cloak.
But it doesn't mean anything, you know what I mean? Like, it's Ashe. She's already at the same item breakpoints as Tristana is, where they're sitting on 2 items, and yeah, it's gonna feel a little bit better on 2 items for Ashe versus 3 items for Trist.
Sure.
But you're playing against an ADC who's going to sprint ahead of you anyway, and in this marathon, Tristana still has a lead on you.
Yeah, ultimately ADC gold is not going to be the determining factor for SK. Instead, it's the solo lane gold. So if we look at that, there's a big lead for Sakura in the top lane. Over 1,000 gold lead over his opponent. And mid lane, it is going in the favor of Humanoid for now, but I think as we give it some time, that could tend to change. Now, with Baron spawning up, this is where the game becomes most interesting, because now we're going to see 2 different ideas of how to play the game. For SK, it's about splitting up the map and using Sakura to make headway on that bottom lane tower, while Splyce Splyce will send multiple members to control the river and control this area around the buff.
So if you're an SK Gaming fan, you're looking at Sakura right now and how much pressure and time he can absorb. Again, we are just trying to stall out long enough where Pyrion and Sakura can completely outscale and play around these side lanes. So it's about when he picks his opportunities to shove forward into that lane, to give information for Splyce and tease them to say, come get me, boys.
Yeah, and the determining factor for when he does go forward is all about mid lane. You'll notice he backed away for the last 30 seconds. When does he walk up? It's because SK pushed mid and Dreams can threaten that ultimate down towards bottom lane. So ultimately, it is not up to Sakura to determine whether or not he can hit this tower. It is up to his team and whether or not they can control the center of the map.
And then you look at Splyce, and any other team, there always feels like there's like a time limit. It's maybe like, how patient are they going to be?
Yep.
1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Eventually, teams in the LEC get bored with this stance and they try to force things. But remember, Splyce's composition doesn't have something like a Sejuani. It's very hard for them to force if they do get impatient. So how do Splyce figure out this Rubik's Cube about how SK Gaming are playing the side lanes? Where do they get impatient and where do they strike?
I think part of that Rubik's Cube is working out, like, how strong can you allow Corki and Ryze to be? Like, how powerful, how many items can you give them if you're half an item ahead? Like, is Azir at 4.5 items stronger than Corki at 4 items? That's the big question I think Splyce will be asking themselves when they're playing this waiting game.
I mean, personally, I feel that Splyce are probably very calm in comms right now. I have a feeling that they're looking at Kabe's itemizations. Kabe's like, hey guys, you know, I'm X number of gold away from 3 items. We can chill out till then. As soon as Kabe has 3 items on the Tristana, then I expect Splyce to start grouping up as kind of their 5-man death unit and start moving into the Baron and saying, if you do not come to us, we will take this objective for free. Like, we don't need to play the 1-3-1. You want what we have, and it's going to be that Baron eventually.
Yeah, and it's the ultimate trump card, and it's the reason why I think teamfight comps are just naturally stronger than split push comps in the current meta, because Baron is so easy to just set up around and take down when the other team is splitting up around the map. If you know you have a stronger 5 versus 5, if you know you have the items on your carries, you can then go towards that Baron. The second you start it, you burn the TP from the enemy split pusher. Then you can back away or fight them. You have 2 options. Either way, they no longer have that teleport, which means for the next, 5-6 minutes, you can no longer go into a side lane if you are SK.
Splyce, SK do have the option of that Abyssal Voyage gank into a side lane if they want, and then maybe using teleports onto Splyce. So if you see Chachi in a side lane against Sakura, an Abyssal Voyage comes in. It's now a 3v1. You then teleport back towards the Baron and force a 4v4 fight there. The question is, will they do it? Because Splyce are starting to set up vision into the SK jungle. If you look down towards the blue side of that SK jungle, you can see wards littered in there. They want to move those over to the top side as well so they can control Baron. Pyrion, caught out with a Winter's Bite, isn't going to take any more damage, and now the dance commences once again. It's tango in the mid lane between SK and Splyce.
For once, it feels that SK Gaming have the edge here, that they're actually the ones that are possibly looking for a play. Again, we're talking about the different power spikes between Ashe and Tristana. The fact that if Kabe stepped up, that he would eat an arrow right there, whereas Kabe is probably going to take maybe 1-2 more waves, have his 3rd completed item, and then back.
It's interesting, too, what SK are sort of telling me with where they're positioning their players on the map. Right now, it seems like they think Pyrion can do better bot side, as opposed to Sakura pushing down there. But as we see, underneath your tower, you get destroyed by this Azir.
Humanoid did take half his health in response, though, tanked up a couple of tower shots, so has to back away. Xerxes is here, but spotted on a bunch of wards from the SK lineup. Humanoid with the Banshee's Veil 2nd here, just trying to mitigate some of the damage, and of course stops the Enchanted Crystal Arrow from connecting if it's heading his way.
I actually think it's kind of interesting because he's matched up against Corki, and also the fact that he is trying to play these side lanes. It's Humanoid who is trying to walk out here, which we normally don't see in Azir play out into these sides. By having a Banshee Veil, not only is it helping him a bit into this 1v1, but he can feel safe being this far forward.
Realm Warp all behind him here. Selfmade has to jump away. Humanoid puts down the tower. Pyrion already taken a lot of damage. Sakura forced away here. SK went to make the play. A bit of Voyage coming in. Dreams and Crown Shot. What on earth are you doing there? Literally feeding yourself into Splyce, and Splyce will eat you right up. Gobble in 2 kills. That's just devastating for SK, and Splyce catch them out.
That was a miserable double teleport there with the Abyssal Voyage. Now Splyce, they've got 30+ seconds. They can make a beeline over towards this Baron. We thought they were going to have to stall, play this Baron dancing game. They just got fed it.
You can cancel Abyssal Voyage. What are you doing?
That is a trust fall gone very, very wrong.
That it is. Splyce, instead of going for the Baron, though, they'll continue to keep Humanoid in this side lane. They think they can get mid tier 2, they could get bot tier 2 as well, or they might just be looking for the resets.
And that was the silver lining there, the fact that all of the action happened into the bottom side of the map, and though it looked like Splyce for a second were probably considering, do we actually just walk across the map towards the Baron, or do we respect the fact that the death timers are still relatively low, we don't necessarily have a true tank on this roster, so this early on into the game, you would take significant damage from that Baron, and you were competing with the fact that Ashe still had access to TP.
So you see this one more time because Pyrian is the initial one that gets jumped on. You see SK, they're trying to make this play. So they send 4 people in at the same time. So what actually goes wrong? Because Selfmade bails. All of a sudden there's a double TP from Splyce. Like, wait a second, guys, I thought we were making this play. It was a team call there, so it wasn't Dreams making a mistake or anything. It was literally the team saying, we can find this play, we have the numbers, then realizing every single player on Splyce has a TP, what are we doing?
They went for it, and then everyone else was able to bail out. And Crownshot and Dreams just like, guys?
Like, we don't have any dashes.
I thought we agreed to meet at 7 o'clock down towards the bottom lane. No one else told them.
They got stood up on their date.
Now, I do want to bring attention to Kobe's items. We talked about how good it is for the rest of Splyce. If they get caught up by an arrow, they can escape. Kobe now has a QSS and 3 completed items. That Tristana is well and truly online. It's going to be very difficult for SK to ever catch him out.
They also have every dragon in the game right now and another Infernal. Like, everything is going right for Splyce in this early game. They are so powerful that, again, it feels like it's going to come down to get priority over mid lane, take the dragon for free when it's up there, walk over to the Baron when you've decided that you've had enough, and they can't do anything. Like, SK Gaming can't do anything about it.
Yeah, get a little Infernal Drake on top there, too.
They're going to Baron.
Very easy for Splyce, but SK, yeah.
I like this call. I like this call. You have to do something. You have to pull the trigger. They go for Baron straight away. Humanoid's going to teleport in here as SK look for it. It's Baron action. The Infernal Drake goes down towards the bottom side. That's a sack for Splyce. They'll get the upgrade from this, but the Baron's down to 2,000 HP already. SK trying to take it. They'll secure it just in time. Secured by Pyrian. Now Humanoid sliding into the backline. Crownshot's going to go down. Splyce is going to be able to take all of these kills. They take down 2, and they're looking for the chase.
The rest of Splyce is on the way. Watch this flank from Kaba. He uses his banner. He's getting ready to hop.
This is every man for himself. Get out alive, SK.
Can they do it, though? Selfmade trying to jump onto Chachi. Pyrian there as well. Dreams chasing down towards the bottom side. Chachi's going to root up. Selfmade off towards the bottom side as Pyrian's going to fall as well.
There's one.
Splyce take 4.
Two.
Lose the Baron. They have 5 dragons, though, and only Dreams walks out alive.
How much can Splyce push off of this, though? You have long death timers on SK. That fight lasted a century, and now, even without the Baron, they have the numbers for the push.
That was literally, they took the Baron, they all looked at each other and said, guys, it's been nice knowing you. I'm going this way, you're going that way, everyone split up.
Dreams was a little salty about that last play where the rest of his team bailed on
guys,
him.
I'm getting out alive this time, you do you. But Splyce come out on top, 4,000 gold ahead. They don't have the Baron, which will hamper them just for a short while, and maybe it's enough for SK to continue delaying this game. Maybe they can get towards those 3.5, 4 items.
And the thing is I like the boldness of the call. You said it right as it happened, Medic. I was like, you know what? I agree, SK. You have to do something. They thought that they could burn it fast enough. They did manage to get the Baron, but again, it was at that point they knew they couldn't fight Splyce as soon as they showed up. So how the hell were they going to get out of dodge?
Yeah, they made the call to full commit on Baron. Selfmade missing that smite there almost made it a terrible play. But ultimately, they do get one shot down before they realize they will be run down.
You know, there was a terrifying moment when they tabbed to check if Norse Garen was running Unsealed Spellbook. They're like, is this going to be a repeat? But he had Guardian today.
And this is just clean up for the rest of Splyce. The catch out Selfmade tries to do what he can. It's Pyrian caught out towards the top side as well. Of course, only Dream surviving, and she used the Abyssal Voyage to go back towards the mid lane to get himself the hell out of there. But let's have a look at the state of the game. 30 minutes in, it's only a 4,000 gold lead for Splyce. 3 completed items though on Humanoid with the Rabadon's death cap there. Sakre has a Rabadon's of his own. We can see if this SK first time Rise pick is going to work out for them, because now is when it has to come up trumps.
Yeah, all these items are coming through for SK, but the narrative of the game does not change. It is still team fight for Splyce, split push for SK. You can do fancy tricks like send Selfmade to shadow Sakre in the bottom side to find picks, but that is all they can do at the moment. Because the Baron is off the map, they have a lot of time to then regroup, get those items, and win those side lane matchups, but it is still a very difficult game for SK.
A small small benefit for SK though is because Dreams was alive, the wave push from Splyce is a lot weaker. You can keep a Baron up wave, which means you can send Selfmade and Sacred down towards the side lane without giving up too much on the rest of the map.
It certainly slows down how Splyce were eating up a lot of this map. And again, credit to the fact that Selfmade, with his virtually full AD and lethality, Lee Sin is on the hunt.
Selfmade jumping in, Sacred there with the flash as well. The root, the catch, it's so good for SK. They take out Chachi Humanoid here onto Selfmade, gonna slide in. Selfmade trying to survive, but he can't. Now it's Sacred versus Humanoid in the 1v1. The ammo's coming down.
Humanoid buying time here as Sacred jukes away from the arrow, but the rest of SK is not going to be there. There goes the Realm Warp for Sacred to escape, and Splyce will not able to find the collapse.
Still stalling out Splyce. They're not able to get anything else on the map right there. It's the fact that they are trying to play towards those side lanes. So finally, SK Gaming are able to play their 1-3-1 style.
We'll see if they can do it, because at the moment Splyce do not want to give them an inch. Kobe, Norscarin and Xerxes pushing in. This tower will fall. Kobe at 4 item Trist. Level 15 as well, almost the longest range in the game. Level 16 Tristana pips Caitlyn, I believe.
And Splyce can quickly collapse down on towards this bottom lane turret as well, get some more gold for themselves, but crucially for SK, not going to be breaking the inhibitor towers just yet. Splyce will use this control, use this gold to once again reset and wait for the Baron. That is the timer they are going to be playing off of now. It's very hard to do much of anything unless you're punishing an SK overextension without that objective to try and pull SK like a magnet towards you.
The big thing as well is Splyce have a 6 Dragon Elder as a win condition here as well. There's the Cloud Drake coming up pretty soon in the next minute or so, but we'll see once again, Chachi getting called out. SK have to burn 2 flashes.
I mean, I guess the nice thing can be said that with how much damage Selfmade is doing and the fact that he is a Lee Sin, yeah, it's like a 6 Dragon Elder possibility for Splyce, but the potential for Selfmade to steal it is pretty high.
That is, Sacred just about gets away. The Enchanted Crystal Arrow actually missing Humanoid as he was rooted up by Sacred, trying to trade onto Splyce here. You can see the Cloud about to spawn in the next 30 seconds or so, and Splyce just controlling River once again. If you have a look at the vision lines along the river, it's all Splyce all the time. SK really only have superficial wards in their own base, where Splyce are controlling as much of that river as possible.
So I think Splyce, if you're ever going to be able to find something to break up in the game here before Baron, it has to come off of a smooth play from Humanoid, right? That's going to be your only option. You know, if SK push too far forward inside of their jungle, which you've seen, Sakura do a couple of times, but the rest of the team feels like they've, pretty tame at the moment. They're not going to be making any of those moves, but ultimately that has to be the move for them without something to pull SK towards them.
Yeah, and the scary thing for SK fans is the fact that Splyce don't have to do that. The onus isn't really on them to do anything but to wait for the timer. You can see all of the dragons that they've got up top. You can see that that Elder is now on a timer. The Baron is going to spawn soon, so Splyce very happy in cruise control, just chilling. Windows down, it's a beautiful day. They're driving straight towards that finish line.
They're not going to catch that ward though, although it is timing out, so crucially will not be up when the Baron does spawn. Splyce, they would like to get a little bit deeper vision in towards that jungle, but they're going to step up with 4 members, knowing this minion wave is coming. They can clear that one first, which then gives them the route inside the enemy jungle, where you can look to move that control ward off the map, put down the deep stuff, and actually just start up this Baron.
Humanoid and Chachi are going to go through it very quickly. Xerxes there as well. SK just giving it up. They say, okay, Sacred's going to push in bot. We're going to try and get Cryo mid, but you don't have to. Looking for the steal. Can't quite get there. He's got the GA, but he goes down, and Xerxes will secure the Baron. Abyssal Void shoots towards the bottom lane, and the TP comes in as well. SK looking for an inhib, at least if they can get it.
Yeah, but it's 4-second recalls off of the Baron there for Splyce, so SK commit everything down bottom side, 2 teleports with the Abyssal Voyage, which means that you can't get much of anything. They give up the Baron for absolutely nothing.
Splyce are just too clean right there, from the vision setup to denying the blast cone to making sure that they took down the Lee Sin before the smite and the Baron fell so they could secure it. And then once they had the recall timer, it doesn't matter how bold SK are trying to be with these calls, looking for that cheeky Baron, looking to teleport and to try to force down a bot inhib and trade for the Baron. Splyce are just too clean. You can't compete.
And Splyce did a really good job as well of chasing SK out of that bottom side. It would have been easy for SK just to back and try and defend that inhibitor. Humanoid gets it because Crownshot cannot step up in that 1v1. We're well and truly in the late game. Last time these teams met in playoff, it was late game victories for Splyce all of the time. It seems to be another one on the cards here.
Yeah, I mean, they're set up for it once again. With the Baron for another 2.5 minutes, with the top lane inhibitor down, they can push freely in towards the SK base. Remember, SK have no good ways to start off a team fight. They would have to be running face first into an Azir and a Braum, which is not an easy thing to do.
Face first, maybe all they have left, though. A miraculous play will need to come out of SK as Pyrian looking to go forward. Xerxes so tanky though already. The arrow connects, but it's only onto the Olaf, and that's not the target you want. Norscarin steps forward, and Splyce are looking for their second inhibitor.
Since Kabe's death in that mid lane, there's been great body blocking by Splyce, always making sure that Norscarin and Xerxes are standing in front of him. And even if that arrow does connect with him, you still have the QSS available for Kabe, so there's just not good targets anymore for Crown Shot.
This might just be a game that ends without a fight, because right now SK are giving up absolutely everything. There goes Selfmade!
Selfmade jumps in, the Valkyrie comes out as well. Do they have the damage? They've got one, but one in return comes out from Splyce and Kabe. It's going on a rampage, jumping all over SK. There's nothing they can do against him. Xerxes secures another kill, and Splyce are looking for the ace as they chase Sacre onto his base.
Splyce absolutely smash SK Gaming. In 37 minutes, they have 6 dragons, they got the Baron, and they've got the Nexus.
A dominant performance by Splyce. They well and truly deserve their 3rd spot in the LEC.
Outside a single misstep from Kabe in that mid lane where Selfmade looked like he was trying to put on his heroics. It has just been complete domination from start to finish in that game from Splyce. From their lane phase, it looked exactly like they knew what the plan was, that they knew how to execute their win conditions, and they didn't miss a beat.
It was just so controlled from them. They knew exactly what they needed to do, how they needed to play out this game, relying on Kabe early on to get those kills, knowing the 5v5 was unmatchable from the side of SK Gaming. Yeah, they can split the map against you, but if you control the center, if you control things like the Baron, there's just nothing that SK could throw that could stop them.
I know this is going to seem weird, but as Norscarin walks across that stage, you can just check out that guy's shoe game. I'm a big sneaker fan. Norscarin has the hottest shoe game in the LEC. He's rocking the foam off-whites.
Unfortunately, the camera is angled away from his shoes.
And he's got the pink ones to match his keyboard.
Yeah, they're in SK colors, though. I'm getting some conflicting vibes over here.
Well, we'll make sure to tweet at Norscarin, tell him how good his shoe game is for Skurin recommended. But if you do look on the other side of SK, talking about those pink shoes, a little bit disappointing for them. You know, Selfmade said Xerxes not going to read me like a book. That seemed to be exactly what happened. He didn't have an early game impact. He wasn't really able to set his team up for any sort of mid to late game pressure.
But it was a team effort. You know, it wasn't just about Xerxes versus Selfmade, and that's why Splyce are such an interesting team, especially when they do face SK Gaming. It feels like Splyce just have SK's number, that they know how to read this team. They have a very well-crafted plan from it. It started with the Azir in terms of such high priority to make sure that they didn't lose mid-priority early on, and warding buffs, trading objectives, it just start to finish clean.
Yeah, they just split the mini-map right from the get-go, isolating Sock right now. We'll see this replay of the end one more time. Very clean from Selfmade. Again, no one's doubting his Lee Sin mechanics to find the kicks, but unfortunately it was just way too little, way too late. And Kabe has free reign to jump forward, to flash forward, and get the explosive crits onto Crown Shot.
And the thing is, Sacre's your big player in this fight, right? You're expecting that Rise to put out some DPS, to machine gun down Kabe, but he just can't do anything. He's forced out of the fight, doesn't have any of that frontline protection, and watch Kabe as he just jumps around.
Yeah, we said very early on, no one can match Tristana's range in these late game team fights. Look at how far away he's pumping out the damage, getting everyone down. His health bar was not touched a single time in that fight.
I love how you're like, look at how far away he is. He's literally jumping within melee range.
He was far away at the start, Frost.
He was a mile away at the start, and he did twice as much damage as his opposing man in that
stomping his way through.
A pretty dominant performance from Kabe once again, shows us why he is one of the best AD carries in the league. Splyce showing us probably why they are, I'm going to say, a top 3 contender now, because week 3 they beat Origin in a late game fight. Now they're beating SK as well, who they beat in the quarterfinals of playoffs last split. I think a lot of people have to start thinking, are Splyce top 3 in our league?
Well, I mean, that's kind of the shift of power that we're looking for. You have SK Gaming, which might take up Splyce's mantle of being the gatekeepers, if you will, of playoffs. And then you have Splyce, who just want to get on that podium, who have tried so hard and are looking for the top 3 finish.
They want to go to Athens, baby.
They want to go to Worlds, baby.
That too. Athens first.
Athens first, then the world. That's the European mantra for this year. Key player of the game, guys, at LOL Esports on Twitter. You can vote for Xerxes, Humanoid, or Kabe.
I'm going to say special shout out also to Norscarin. I definitely think that all 3 of those...
He's got great shoes.
He's got great shoes.
Also, I think that was one of his cleaner brawl games. I think we've been a bit critical of Norscarin, but one of the champions that he continues to perform on is that Braum inside the lane phase, and particularly outside of lane phase.
But in terms of League of Legends, play Kabe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kabe's a good bet.
Coming up next, Mr. Gaming's Max Law returns to the lineup against G2 Esports. We'll find if he can lead them to a big win after this break.